What's going on, guys? Super Insane 18 here, and I am very excited to bring you today's deck profile because it is a deck that I have waited nearly 2 years to be able to make competitively viable, and that deck is Marincess. And while it might not be the top of the top, it is definitely meta relevant because it took up not one, but 2 slots in the Italian Nationals, so let's show you guys what we got. Marincess is a water-based Cyberse archetype where the typical end board is sitting on a very strong, usually unaffected boss monster, but it obviously is able to put out some more things such as Totally Awesome, as well as an archetype-specific Infinite Impermanence in Marincess Wave, and it is just honestly a very good and very strong meta contender, very similar to what Salamangreat can do, albeit in my personal opinion a little bit better, so let's show you guys the deck profile. Alright guys, so kicking things off, we have 3 copies of Marincess Blue Tang. This is going to be the best starter in the deck. On summon, she can Foolish Burial any one of your Marincess monsters, but when she's used for the link summon of a Marincess monster as well, she essentially Pot of Dualities your deck for a Marincess card. You can add any Marincess card off the top 3 and then shuffle the rest back into the deck. Definitely the best starter that we have, followed by 3 copies of Marincess Seahorse. This is another good starter, albeit not as good as the Blue Tang. This can just special summon itself to a zone that a Marincess Link monster points to, and when it's in the graveyard, except for the turn that it's sent, you can banish it to special summon a Marincess from your hand, so it acts as a starter both turns 1 and 2, or 1 and 3, because once it's already established in the grave, you can use it to just keep going. Then we have 3 copies of Spring Girl. This is more so an extender than a starter, but you can definitely use it to start as well. Plus, this card is actually hilarious. It can let you win in time if you're lucky, but you can special summon it from your hand by banishing a Marincess monster from your graveyard, and then if you use it for the link summon of a Marincess monster, you can send cards from the top of your deck to your graveyard equal to the number of Marincess monsters that you control, and burn your opponent for 200 for each Marincess card that is sent to the graveyard with that effect. Then we have 2 copies of Pascalis. This is kind of like a Tin Goldfish for the deck, where you normal summon it and then you can just special a Marincess from your hand. But it's also very good recursion because when it's in the graveyard, except the turn that it's sent, you can banish it from the graveyard to target any Marincess spell trap in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. That lets you recur important cards such as Dive and Wave. Then we have 1 copy of Sleepy Maiden. This is just another extender. You can special summon it by targeting a Marincess card you control. While Sleepy Maiden is on the field, you can make it so that the card it targeted is not able to be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, and then when it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to equip a Marincess Link monster from your graveyard to a face-up Marincess Link monster that you control, which is very useful. And finally, we have 1 copy of Mandarin. I didn't see any of the topping lists play this, but I think it's too good not to play. It's a free special summon from hand or grave. If you have 2 or more Marincess monsters, you have to summon it to a zone that a Marincess Link points to, which isn't really that problematic. I will show you guys in the comp tutorial, which make sure you check that out. It is going to be coming this upcoming Wednesday, which is, I believe, the 29th of June, so keep your eyes out for that because I had to actually consolidate it. The lines of play in this deck feel somewhat limitless, and it took me a while to condense it down to just a few combos, so hopefully you guys enjoy that. Then the strongest part of this deck and why it is very similar to something like Salamangreat is you can just play an absolute ton of hand traps. So we have 2 copies of Effect Veiler, 3 copies of Ash Blossom, 3 copies of Nibiru, and then we are also playing 2 copies of Infinite Impermanence. The reason that we aren't maxing out on the Imperm and the Veiler is because we are playing Marincess Wave at 2 as well, so it's kind of like we're playing 3 of each, but we'll get there when we get there. But that's going to be it for the monsters and the hand traps. Then we have our 1 of Called by the Grave. This is just obvious. Then we have 2 copies of Marincess Battle Ocean. A lot of builds are only playing this at 1, but because we are playing Pot of Desires, I can't justifiably run it at 1. With how important it is, I don't want to banish it. Not to mention, just hard opening it sometimes is really good as well because of a card in the extra deck, which we will show you a little bit later. We have the 2 Pot of Desires, which I mentioned earlier, and then we're actually playing 3 copies of Crossout Designator. I feel like this is mandatory in this deck just because this deck really does hard lose to Nibiru, so being able to out the Nibiru is definitely very good, but not to mention, since you're playing a bunch of hand traps anyway, you can just cross out the hand traps. And you also play Forbidden Droplet, so crossing out the Droplet is a really good way to respond if they just send monsters, because if they're not sending a spell, you can respond to spells, cross out being a good way to out it. We have 3 copies of Signet Mining for consistency, since all of our monsters are Cybers. We have our 3 copies of Forbidden Droplet, and then 3 copies of Marincess Dive. This is an incredible card that we just received in the new Legendary Duelist, Duels from the Deep. What you can do with this is you can special summon a non-link Marincess from your graveyard, or if you control the field spell Battle Ocean, you can summon one from your deck as well, which just lets you extend an insane amount. So definitely very good card, no less than 3. And finally, 2 copies of Marincess Wave. This is an imperm on steroids. What you can do is, as long as you control a Marincess Link monster, you can target a monster your opponent controls and negate its effects. Then, if you have a Link 2 or higher, all of your monsters that are currently on the field become unaffected by your opponent's card effects. And then, if you have a Link 3 or higher, you can activate this card from your hand without having to set it, thus making it somewhat directly comparable to imperm. That is going to be 42 cards and the end of the main deck. Let's show you guys the extra. So for the extra deck, we have our one and only Omni Negate package, which is going to be the Totally Awesome and the Bahamut Shark. There is a combo that lets you get this before you're able to be Nibiru'd, but it's not that consistent because it is a 3-card combo. It will be in the combo tutorial, so make sure you keep an eye out for that, but it's just really good to be able to end your board on a Toad. Not only is it a negate, but it's also recursion, so definitely strong and worth having. Then we have 2 copies of Marincess Blue Slug. I really wanted to play this at 3, but there just isn't enough room. You're able to recur it somewhat easily, so it's not really the end of the world anyway, but I really think that this card might be worth putting to 3 if you can make the room. Then we have 2 copies of Marincess Sea Angel. This card got the most insane buff with the new set because it searches a Marincess spell, but previously the only spell was the field spell, which kind of made it pretty much comparable to Salamangreat Balinks. But now that we have Dive, we're able to search the Dive as well, which just opens up the line for some absolutely insane plays. Imagine if your Balinks was able to search something more than just Sanctuary. That is pretty much what Sea Angel does, and it's absolutely incredible. Then we have our 1 copy of Marincess Crystal Heart. This card is actually crazy. When it's in the extra monster zone, it's unaffected, but that's not the important part. The important part is the effect of the field spell that says any Marincess Link monster you make using this as material essentially becomes an Apocryphal Towers. It is completely unaffected by your opponent's card effects, and there's really not much they can do to it. Then we have 2 copies of Coral Anemone. Coral Anemone is insane. It's just a monster reborn for any water monster with 1500 or less attack. I wish there wasn't that 1500 or less attack stipulation, because the way that you're able to cycle this card is crazy, and if you were able to reborn something like a Totally Awesome, it would be absolutely busted. But being able to do 1500 or less is still definitely very strong for the deck. Again, I really want you guys to watch that combo video because it's actually crazy, so just keep in mind that Coral Anemone is a huge part of the deck. Then we have 1 copy of Splash Mage. This is essentially just a pseudo Coral Anemone and actually allows you to extend a little bit further because it is not specific to 1500 or less. It's just a Cybers monster. It does have to be in defense, so you can't get any of your links, but you're able to reborn pretty much anything else that you use. Then we have our 1 copy of Coral Triangle. This card is also a very big buff from the new set. This lets us search our Marincess Wave, which was a very big nuisance in the deck previously. You had to pretty much either open it or mill it off of your Blue Tang effect, so now that we can search it, it's definitely worth playing. Really incredible card. I wish there was room for more, but there really isn't. We have our 1 copy of Marbled Rock. This card lets you add any Marincess back from your graveyard, Marincess card, not just monster, and then you can use its other effect to make sure that your stuff isn't able to be destroyed by battle and you take no damage, so kind of just to keep you alive. But the new boss monster of the deck is going to have to be the Aqua Argonaut. This card is insane. It is a spell or trap negate by summoning one of the equipped monsters, so you do have to either use the field spell in tandem with this or the Sleepy Maiden to make sure that something is equipped. But being able to just negate a spell trap on top of having something like a Toad, definitely very incredible. Plus you can make it unaffected. Plus, since it's a Link 4, you can activate Wave from your hand, so really incredible card. Then this next one is just a flex spot. This is Shooting Code Talker. Honestly, this might be better off as an access code, but we lock ourselves into water, so I wanted to try and keep the water theme, but this lets you attack multiple times, equal to the number of Link monsters it points to +1, so you can usually get it up to about 3 attacks, and then at the end of the battle phase, you can draw a card for each card destroyed by battle with this card, so it's just a consistency piece, plus it lets you run over boards. Again, probably better as an access code. It's my flex spot, but take with that what you will. And finally, we have our Great Bubble Reef. This card is just for a little bit of consistency. You can use it to draw cards on the standby of every turn by banishing a Marincess monster from your grave. So you can use this to draw into additional hand traps, and that is it for the extra. And there you have it. That is going to do it for my Marincess deck profile. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, you know the deal. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, comment, share with your friends, and maybe consider supporting me on Patreon. For just $1, you can support the channel in a way that I would never be able to tell you how much I fully appreciate. Make sure that you check out the combo tutorial for this deck on Wednesday. It is going to be insane, and spoiler alert, not the only combo tutorial that I'm going to be doing. When I was trying to make the combos for this video, I had so many of them that the only reasonable answer was to split it into multiple videos, so make sure you check that one out because there will be more coming. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.